All right, guys. Thank you all for listening here. What's up, Trace? We in the city. All right, cool. Glad y'all around. We'll go ahead and get that shindig started. But let's go ahead and go right on into this. All right, so today's date is May 18th, 2019, and this is how the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host and most Will Buchanan. On how the Frack We Got Here, we simply take last week's events and also try to make sense of it all. Before I do get started, I do have to sit there and say this is an adult podcast, which means things of adult nature may be shown, and language may not be suitable for young viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. All right, so let's just go ahead and get right on into it. We're just going to stick to the part that's basically been covering the airwaves the most time, and, well, it's basically about abortion.
This week, just after the Georgia legislature passed a heartbeat bill a week ago, overnight, Alabama signing that most restrictive abortion ban into effect, and now the Missouri Senate also moving forward with a ban on abortions after 8 weeks. Opponents of those efforts have spilled into the streets of Georgia today. Our Avery Harper was down there following the rally, which also turned out a prominent 2020 Democratic candidate. Avery, tell us what's going on down there.
Hi, Devin. Well, Kirsten Gillibrand, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand was here earlier today for that pro-choice rally here at the Georgia State Capitol. It was an event that was in two parts. It was a roundtable talk with women who had received abortions, activists, healthcare providers, elected officials, and that was standing room only. About 75 people plus the national and local press were all crammed into this room talking about the slew of restrictive abortion legislation that has been passed across the country. Senator Gillibrand definitely had some choice words about that. She said she is welcoming the fight to fight for women's reproductive rights in this country. Take a listen to what she had to say.
I will make it clear beyond a shadow of a doubt that women in this country have a guaranteed right to an abortion. Second, I will end the Hyde Amendment, which disproportionately blocks women of color and women with low incomes from getting access to abortion services. And third, in the most sweeping step that I'm going to take as president, I will guarantee access to reproductive health care, including abortion, no matter what state you live in. And I can tell you one thing. If this is the fight that President Trump wants, if this is a fight that he wants with the American people, if this is a fight he wants with America's women, it is a fight he will have, and it is a fight he will lose.
Now, this is definitely a
Okay, I'm just going to really cut it off there because, like I said, it's 10 minutes. Basically going off everything as far as that. But yes, it seems in the last couple of days, if I got this correctly, let me get this right, Alabama, Georgia, Missouri, and Ohio, I think. So Alabama, Missouri, Ohio, pretty much 4 states have introduced these laws that are basically, well, it started off with Alabama putting in the first fetal heartbeat bill. I'm sorry, that's what I should call it. I apologize. So pretty much what that means is that basically if a fetal heartbeat is detected, that abortion is not an option. And the thing about abortion is, and BJ, you're basically what I'm getting to, is that all these states are now, which are mostly conservative states, are now coming out and trying to basically, this is the long ball game, I should say. This is the long ball game with Republicans because they're eventually going to eventually try to go against Roe versus Wade. Now, for all those that don't know, Roe versus Wade is the landmark Supreme Court case that makes abortion a safe legal practice, which means that no woman can be held under penalty for simply not wanting to be a mother. That being said, there are a lot of people out there that feel differently, and that's fine. And that's kind of what the heart I'm getting to on this is just like, for me, I can care less what a woman does with her body. It's a simple concept. A simple concept is that a woman's body is her own motherfucking business. Her own. And I'll say why. Because I don't care. I mean, simply put, if a woman decides to be a mother, cool. If she doesn't want to be a mother, okay. She lives with the consequences. I still sleep good at night. Never bothered me. However, you do have those people out here who feel differently. how could they turn down being a mother when all this and not to go too far off the fact of respective journalism, but honestly, when people start, I should say, personalizing it, it's hard to have a discussion with those types of folks, because to them, they are literally trying to summarize science with emotion. But let's be honest. I always said conception. They always argue about when does life start. Conception of life starts. It's simple. It starts when you're born. When you're born, you have a birth date. When you die, you have a death date. Birth, death. Life starts, life ends. That's it. There's nothing more to that. It's not about when the sperm reaches the egg and fertilizes it and becomes a zygote, or when the zygote fertilizes for 9 months and becomes an infant upon birth. No matter how you cut the mustard on that, conception of life starts at birth. That's what I believe, and it's scientifically backed. So, again, with the whole thing about abortion, it gets to a point to where you just have to sit there and say, if you disagree with it, cool. But you cannot influence someone else who thinks differently from you. I'm like, case in point, let's treat abortion just like religion. If you have one person that believes in God and one person who's an atheist that doesn't believe in God, is the person who believes in God going to force what he believes on someone who doesn't believe? No, that would be ridiculous. We all should be able to believe what we want, and if we don't believe it, then cool. If you understand that, then you can understand abortion. I mean, it's the same concept. I am not going to force what I believe upon someone else. They have the right to choose as well as they do. And you're right, Trace. It is a long ball game. And the thing about it is, it's a long ball game to overturn what we believe was going to happen when Brett Kavanaugh was nominated to the Supreme Court, which makes the entire Supreme Court all the way conservative, which means that there is a chance, because Supreme Court rulings can go back and overturn previous ones, that this is setting up to where it'll be a long ball game of that Roe versus Wade can be overturned, and then again, every law that every state puts out can now be made in fact active, because all this is doing right now does nothing. Ohio could put in Ohio, Tennessee, which thankfully I don't know how Tennessee managed not to have this on the docket yet, but I'm pretty sure it's coming. But it amazes me so that all these laws that they're trying to pass out here are not going to be active. They're actually going to go be fought in court and eventually be brought up to the state and eventually go to Supreme Court. That's usually how it works, which unfortunately in this Trump administration, we're going to have a lot of shit go to court, because they're going to keep on fighting it down to the bitter end until, like most things Trump handles before he goes to bankruptcy court, he winds up going to court. But anyway, it's honestly, like I said, and I don't stand on this. Like I said, it's amazing how individuals who don't want government interference in their life want the government to interfere in someone else's life because they believe that the person inside of them deserves a voice, which amazes me so, the hypocrisy of it all. But again, we're gonna keep a journalistic perspective. We're not gonna put anything else beyond that. But again, it's just that there's going to be a long-standing fight on women, because apparently they can't be allowed to tell what with their bodies. But if I jack off and kill millions of my sperm, then I'm not being held to it. But again, we're gonna leave it there for that. So, in otherwise of ridiculous news, we actually have this one that I wish I could make up. And honestly, this will probably be from my friend Bond's random as fuck video. It might as well be, because the simple fact of the matter is, unfortunately, what I'm about to play is real.
They're crazy, but we're actually the sane ones. How many of you have been praying all across America? How many of you have been praying? This coin is our point of contact. When I asked the Lord why the coin, the Lord said, because when you take the coin, it's a point of contact. So your faith is being released with 1 million other believers to pray protection and peace and wisdom and counsel over the President of the United States and over his family. The teaching that is here, this coin as a point of contact, this 24-karat gold-plated coin, And by the way, I couldn't copy the Sanhedrin model. I told them I would do an original, so we found a nicer picture of the president to use. So we have our own version of it. But what we want to do is we want to be able to start, Jim, this movement. We've got 16 months. This battle for the future of America has already started. 16 to 18 months. We're already in it. We're in the battle right now. We need to be praying now and not captive to gloom or anxiety or fear, but channeling our optimism in the direction of God's begun a miracle. Let's keep that miracle going.
Yes, I cannot make that up. That is actually real. Because, most televangelists these days are supporting Trump, most of them that he takes pictures with anyway, and decided to come out with this prayer coin. Well, nothing says con like religion, but again, that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, the whole thing about him bringing up a coin, I just thought, like I said, this is usually my friend Vaughn's Random as Fuck, which you can always watch on YouTube or Facebook Live, by the way. But it's almost ridiculous, the extremes that some of these televangelists go into. Prayer coins, prayer rugs. And I'm like, aren't you the same people that are praying for jets so you can go preach the word? I'm just saying. But anyway, I thought that was just crazy that, you know what, there's probably going to be people who are going to buy it. I mean, P.T. Barnum said it best. There's a sucker for every product, for every event. There's always a person that's going to buy it. I mean, it's just like those Tesla cars that, with nothing against Tesla cars, but I don't want all that automation in my car to be self-driving. I'd like to be driving because I don't trust a computer to drive for me when I can sit there and do it myself. In the same sense with these prayer coins, it's just amazing to me how in the world that this is going to be effective as far as toward the Trump administration, because let's be honest, that's already a dumpster fire. And how is that a dumpster fire? Because remember when he sat there and said he wanted to build a wall to keep immigrants out? Yeah.
Will transform America's immigration system into the pride of our nation and the envy of the modern world. Our proposal builds upon our nation's rich history of immigration while strengthening the bonds of citizenship that bind us together as a national family. Throughout our history, we have proudly welcomed newcomers to our shores. Out of many people, from many places, we have forged one people and one nation under God, and we're very proud of it. We share the same.
Okay, so I know the title itself is a little misleading because he's announcing an immigration proposal, but much like most times when Trump introduces something, he doesn't really say what it is, which I still think it's funny as shit that he still hasn't said what the administration is. So we actually had to do a little digging. And this is, let's see if I could find that. Oh, here it is. So anyway, Trump was supposed to unveil a new immigration plan, but he was too busy talking about how great he is and all the stuff he's done. So we went ahead and actually found the video that actually said what his plan was. And, well, if you're a Trump supporter, you're probably going to be pissed about what this next one's going to show.
It's what the Border Patrol calls a near breaking point of migrants flooding across the southern border. Tonight, the Department of Homeland Security is laying the groundwork to possibly transport migrants by plane to various U.S. cities. The plan also calls for releasing them after processing due to a lack of detention space, according to two DHS officials familiar with the plan. Among those areas, Florida's Broward and Palm Beach counties, where tonight there is a backlash.
I don't think that this should happen in Florida. We have a lot of fish to fry in our own state with our own citizens. I mean, we got 22 million people.
Neither area is considered a sanctuary city, where local law enforcement does not fully cooperate with federal immigration authorities, but they are Democratic strongholds. And just last month, the president warned.
We'll bring them to sanctuary city areas and let that particular area take care of it. We're always saying they have open arms. Let's see if they have open arms.
Tonight, officials tell NBC News sanctuary cities will not be targeted.
And Kristen joining us now. There was also a big announcement today on trade. What was that?
So again, if you're a Trump supporter right now, you're probably pissed off. But he said he was gonna build a border. He said he was gonna keep them out. Now he's gonna be flying them. Who's all gonna pay for it? You. I mean, the most funniest part about that entire video, aside from the fact that he is basically going back on what he said about building a wall, his immigration policy is to take detainees and put them in areas that are not sanctuary cities, which means, like, just like the story said, it's going over to, you know, his lackey, Governor DeSantis, who honestly did illegally want to be governor of Florida, by the way, because it also should have been Andrew Gilliam, but I digress. But he's pissed off about the fact that immigrants are being flown to his state, and it amazes me so. I'm like, wait a minute, you were praising Trump, saying he was a great person and great intelligent businessman, and now this businessman is dumping his problems on your front lawn, and you're annoyed? Keep in mind, Florida itself is a state of immigrants. Not just, I mean, here's the thing what kills me. Immigration itself is beautiful. Don't believe me? Look at Texas, look at New Mexico, look at Florida, look at California. Almost close to 60% of all those states are full of immigrants. Florida itself is a hodgepodge of Cuban, Puerto Rican, Costa Rica. It's beautiful down there. And I can't knock it. Texas the same way. If you go south of the border, south of San Antonio, and if you go to New Mexico, you go to California, hell, Arizona, all those places. And then if you go up north, there's immigration up there too. But here's the thing, immigration isn't bad. We are a nation of immigrants. A lot of us here came voluntarily. Some of our ancestors didn't really get that choice. That being said, it makes no sense that it's 2019, we're still fighting immigration over a xenophobic fear that, for the simple fact of the matter, that you say we don't need people here. Why do we need people here? I hate to break it to you. You know, America, for all its faults, is the land of opportunity. So why not? I mean, at this point, it's like, if you're a Trump supporter, like I said, if you are a Trump supporter, how could you still be a Trump supporter? This man has lied to your face so many times that you can't tell the truth. You're like, you know what it is? You're like a messed up R&B singer who keeps taking old boy back, even though he has pretty much messed you up so many times that you don't know a good thing when you see it. So in this case, I'm starting to think like Trump supporters are like them battered R&B singers who swear up and down they need a man, but you still keep sticking with the one dude that's going to basically screw you over. Why? Because that's all you know. And again, that should tell you a lot about, you know, Trump supporters, the education system, and the way we are. Moving right along on that, also, Trump has said a lot of weird shit lately. And I mean a lot of weird shit. And I mean that because now the interesting thing about this is Trump has decided to basically, if you're basically been under a rock, he has decided to basically introduce trade, pretty much introduce tariffs on Chinese products. China has struck back. And just like we predicted, the only people that are going to be hurt, pretty much us.
Plunge after China retaliated against the U.S. with new tariffs, their response to President Trump's moves. The Dow losing 617 points, the worst day since the first of the year. President Trump tonight saying, "I love the position we're in." ABC senior national correspondent Terry Moran is at the White House.
Just hours after China fired a new shot in the trade wars, President Trump boasted that in this escalating conflict, the U.S. is winning.
If you look at what we've done thus far with China, we've never taken in 10 cents until I got elected. Now we're taking in billions and billions.
The president keeps saying this, that China is paying the U.S. billions of dollars in tariffs. But fact check, that's not true. China's not paying a dime to the U.S. Importers, American firms pay the tariffs, and they usually pass on those costs to American consumers. Trump's own chief economic advisor contradicting him this weekend.
U.S. businesses and U.S. consumers who pay, correct?
Yes, to some extent. I don't disagree with that. Again, both sides will suffer on this.
For U.S. consumers, that means higher prices. According to one pro-trade group, the trade war could cost the average family of four in the U.S. an extra $767 per year. And for many farmers, China's retaliatory tariffs today are devastating.
Now I'm preparing for the worst.
John Kiefner farms soybeans in Illinois. China bought 60% of U.S. soybean exports before the trade war started. John says those days are gone.
A lot of farmers are going to have to come up with alternative sources of income. I'm going to start growing a lot of hay.
All right, so let's get to Terry Moranis live at the White House tonight. And Terry, President Trump is now threatening to slap tariffs on all Chinese imports.
That's right, David. And the administration is already taking the first steps in that process. They're going to release a list of the roughly $325 billion worth of Chinese products that haven't been tariffed, preparing them for those new tariffs. President Trump also announcing that he will plan a $15 billion bailout for farmers. That's on top of last year's $12 billion bailout. Both of these signs that this trade war is nowhere near.
So yes, for all those who said Trump was a smart businessman, you're pretty much need to probably take that back. So again, like I did talk about in the previous podcast, Trump doesn't understand tariffs. He never has. And the thing about it is, the U.S. doesn't take in. I mean, like the economics, like his own economic advisor had said that we're not getting any money from China. And the one thing he really need to revise his statement about is that China's not going to take a hit on this. See, here's the honestly thing that just needs to be said about tariffs. Like I said, tariff is basically a tax on any good that's coming out of a certain country to another country. Unfortunately, China makes 75% of everything that we use in the U.S. Appliances, electronics, shoes, clothes. I mean, we pretty much get a lot of shit from them because most of our manufacturing is done over there to do cheap labor. So, again, us putting tariffs on Chinese products doesn't hurt China one bit because their manufacturing costs don't drop. However, if China decides that, hey, because the only thing China really buys from us is mostly comes from our farming, soybeans, fruits and vegetables, things of that nature. But if they don't buy and they slap tariffs on this, like we slap tariffs on our stuff, then, like I said, farmers get affected. This is the second time farmers have been affected. And again, this should tell you off the bat this trade war that Trump wants to have, this tariff war that he wants to have so bad they think he's winning. He's not, because China isn't losing money. And the simple fact of the matter is, we're actually being the ones on the losing side because, as the article said, we are paying more, and we will pay much more. However, I just find it interesting that Trump is steady more bailing out the farmers, considering that the largest bulk of his votes did come from the Midwest states. And now we can look at it and say farmers have already received a $12 billion payout, and not all farmers got it. And now you're preparing another $15 billion bailout. And I'm just thinking to myself, for a guy who is such a smart businessman, he is literally spending money we don't have because we're steady more borrowing from China, which everybody seems to forget. We still owe China money. And yet here we are slapping tariffs on them. Amazing for a man who says a smart businessman is about to basically put the company in Chapter 7 or Chapter 13, depending on how you look at it. But that's not the only tariff news that he has. The other tariff news that he has, though, is that he is lifting the tariffs on Mexico, Canada for automakers. Now, what does that basically mean? You guys do remember that companies like GM and Ford, because of the tariffs, were cutting back workers in the U.S., moving their production to Mexico. Does anybody else find it strange that Trump just now lifted the ban on tariffs on automakers in Mexico and Canada? That should tell you something, because the only people that are going to profit from this or even have an economic standing is going to be companies like GM and Ford that are basically the ones that are sending their production to these companies. Whereas the jobs that were lost up here are not coming back. And that's the thing that should make you very wary of something like the decisions he's making. On top of that, as far as the last story I have, Terrace, about this, is that he sat there, and I cannot make this up, and I wish I had a video that says it. He sits there and tells Americans, and I wish I could make this up, he tells them not to buy from American companies because of his own tariffs. It is amazing to me. Because then he goes on record and says, there is no reason for U.S. consumers to pay the tariffs before claiming that companies inside China would move to other countries. In the meantime, Trump said that people should just buy products from inside the United States. I'm gonna put it this way. How, Sway? How? You lit all of our products, about close to 60 to 70% of our products come from overseas. Very few American companies are actually offering things that people want to buy. So again, there's really no way to avoid it because your tariffs would increase prices domestically as well as internationally. Why? Because the simple fact of the matter is Trump doesn't understand how tariffs work. Not at all. But he understands how to get money. That is the one thing he definitely does know how to do. You want to know how I know this? Well, look at his financial disclosure this year.
Disclosure shows his 2018 income was at least $434 million, slightly down from the year before. As Democrats fight for the release of the president's tax returns, the financial report filed with the Government Ethics Office shows the Trump International Hotel in Washington brought in more than $40 million. His revenues from Mar-a-Lago dipped about 10% to $22 million. And Trump National Doral Resort was one of the biggest sources of income for the president, making him more than $75 million. President.
Yeah, I wish I could make that up. So everybody wonders, for all those that were wondering whenever he went to his Mar-a-Lago resort, which was almost every other weekend, and going every holiday, and whenever he needed a vacation, that's right. We basically paid him, as the American people, to his own resort that he stayed at, that we paid him for last year. $434 million, on top of the $75 million that he's already accumulated this year. So, again, con men know how to make their money stack up. And it's amazing to me how in the world we allow this man, because every president who has taken vacations have taken vacations in different areas. I mean, you can go to Camp David for a summit. You can go to the G1 summit in Sweden, and various vacation areas. And I'll even give Bush. Bush went to his home ranch in Texas. Bush II. I can't knock him. He wasn't getting paid by the American taxpayer to go home. He wasn't. Neither was Obama when he decided to go back to Hawaii. The American taxpayers were simply paying for protection at those places. But think about this. Trump has figured out how to basically get paid and get protection and be the president and basically be a dictator all at once. That alone is fucking disturbing. Disturbing. And that alone should kind of give us some fair warning about, his vacation practices, much like the first hostage Melania Trump's Be Best campaign, which... Matter of fact, does anyone see anything about this Be Best campaign since she's been... I haven't seen anything about the first hostage since she said Be Best when she basically copied Michelle Obama. But then again, she basically copied Michelle Obama on everything. So what do we expect for somebody that got in the U.S. under a genius visa? But again, the whole idea of just paying Trump to stay at his own hotel is honestly asinine. But $434 million? This guy's like the Tom Brady of presidents. Even when he loses, this motherfucker still wins. But again, he can pay himself, but he can't get the country running. And another story that came out also was the story of Eric Gardner. For all those that don't know, he was actually killed because of an illegal chokehold move that the NYPD used. Well, another story came out about that today, which was also very disturbing.
14 video of New York police arresting Eric Garner and wrestling him to the ground started a nationwide battle cry for police accountability.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
Officer Daniel Pantaleo put Garner in what critics say was an illegal chokehold after suspecting him of selling loose cigarettes. Now, almost 5 years after Garner's death, a police disciplinary hearing has uncovered text messages sent after he went unconscious. A sergeant at the scene texting about Pantaleo. Danny tried to grab him. They both went down. They called the bus, a police nickname for ambulance, ASAP. He's most likely DOA. He has no pulse. A lieutenant responding, "Okay, keep me posted. I'm still here." before sending a follow-up text. Not a big deal. We were effecting a lawful arrest. The lieutenant says the text was meant to assure that officer.
I can't breathe.
But protesters and Garner's mother are outraged.
No big deal. Now, if one of your loved ones or one of his loved ones was on the ground dead and someone come up to you and say it's no big deal, how would you feel about it?
A grand jury declined to indict Pantaleo, whose attorney says the officer used a police-approved maneuver on Garner. But tonight, Garner's mother is renewing her call for all of the officers to be fired. Morgan Chesky, NBC News.
So, I mean, as far as that goes, yes, it is just, like I said, I've always said it best about police and black men, and the simple fact of the matter is, no matter if we're armed or unarmed, they always see us as a threat. They have to meet with deadly force. And it's only because the fact of the matter is that they're basically told and trained to basically kill us. Eric Gardner was the warning. Eric Gardner, honestly, was one of the many that got killed. And to see the police commander, to see the police CO at the time, sit there and say no big deal. And I get it. Well, the text message between the officer and his correcting and his CO, and he's just trying to assure them, and there's nothing really he could do because it's a lawful arrest. I love when they say it's a lawful arrest. It takes 4 you guys to arrest somebody who allegedly was selling loose cigarettes. Bravo. Bravo so much. It took 4 you guys to basically do that. That alone should tell us a lot about how police handle black dudes. At the same time, we've seen it present. So I'm not surprised by the simple fact of the attitude and the way that things are going at it. But the funny thing I've noticed about police, especially here in Nashville, since we voted for a public oversight committee, police don't want to be policed. And I'm like, well, why is that? We ask you to protect and serve us. I mean, we pay you to protect and serve us. But when we ask you to be held to a higher standard, all of a sudden you don't want to do it. That's kind of like a guy who was a manager, and now that manager's got a boss, and he doesn't want to answer anybody to above him about his job. That's pretty much what our police department is right now, and that alone should say something about the way things are handled. Wait, say Trace, didn't the wife take the money? She must didn't share with the family. Well, I'm not sure where that. You can probably explain that one, Trace. I don't get it, because that's still. I mean, there was. Yeah, if I remember right, there was a settlement, but I mean, what does that got to do with the mom still? Saying this is. I mean, she's still. The mom is still an activist. I have to give her props for that. But I don't see how that. You gotta explain that one, Trace. And you're right, BJ. It's not a big deal to them because they're going to kill us and get a paid vacation. They do. I have yet to see one officer in a shooting of a black man that immediately put on. I'm going to tell you right now, and we all know how it goes. Immediately put on administrative leave, gets police detail protection, probably gets actually moved out of the county or moved out of the state for his own protection, because full well hell that was there and say, well, there's a chance somebody might get him. Well, he didn't give the black dude a chance, and yet he's getting all the chances in the world. But I still feel the same situation, that you're telling me an unarmed black man you can't bring in alive, but you can bring in a fully body armored Caucasian male armed to the teeth and no problem. Like I said, it never ceases to amaze me. Tamir Rice was playing with a toy gun, couldn't be stopped. Dylan Roof was armored and he was brought in and then taken to Burger King. Should tell you everything you want to know. I feel the situation, but this is money play too. Mom didn't get broke off. I can't say that. I mean, here's the thing. I can't sit there and say money will make people go away, because there's some people where it's more about the finance. It's more about the simple fact of the matter is that something needs to be done, and that they find that cause and dedicate to it. Like Meek Mill. I'll give Meek Mill credit because I used to dog him all the time. But Meek Mill, since he's been out of prison, has became an activist for prison reform and really has walked the walk. So in his case, I understand it's not about that. I mean, he's still He still wants to make music. He still wants to be an artist. I get that, but you know, since all that crap's happened to him, it's almost like he's found another purpose. I can't knock the man for that. In the same sense that Eric Gardner's mom could be the same way Trayvon's mom. They may have found a purpose to actually move forward and dedicate their lives to. I can't knock people that want to do that. So that's why I said I can't see it as a money grab, because it's because she's dead set on wanting to change things. But again, like, as is my opinion, like I said, it's not the fact that you probably wouldn't be off. It's just that it's kind of hard to see it when someone, you know, that's been still being an activist for so long is still wanting to sit there and still see justice done for her son. That's just me. But we're gonna keep this party going. So another thing that did happen this week for my my LGBTQ people, I love y'all. Could y'all please stop adding letters to this thing? Because it's already hard enough to say. I'm like, I just sit there and stop myself. LGBTQ. There we go. I love y'all, but the acronyms, we do leave it where it is. That's cool right now, because any more acronyms, we're going to change the whole formula. But anyway, some actual good news and good news / bad news. But we're going to start with the good news first.
For gay and lesbian Americans, the House of Representatives today passing in sweeping fashion a bill that would prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender. It's called the Equality Act, and what it would do was it would expand the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which already protects these categories. Take a look: race, color, religion, sex, and national origin, and it would go ahead and add in sexual orientation and gender. 7 Republicans joined all House Democrats today in voting for the bill. And just ahead of the historic vote, we caught up with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
Madam Speaker, big day for the Equality Act.
It's a great day. We're very excited. It's historic.
Historic day, and you've overseen so much of this.
Well, we're very proud of Mr. Cicilline and the bill, and our Black Caucus, which supported it in such a.
And what difference will this make for so many LGBT Americans?
Well, it's just not only for them, it's for them, but it's also for America. This is a great expansion of freedom in our country, long overdue.
Now, the bill faces long odds in the Republican-controlled Senate, where many Republicans there say this would be a restriction on religious liberty in this country. But one sponsor of the bill tells me that he's confident minds can be changed and that this thing can pass.
It's a momentous day, and I really feel like I stand on the shoulders of all those who have fought and come before me.
On this vote, the yeas are 236, the nays are 173. The bill is passed.
I think many people in this country just sort of assume that, LGBT equality, there's no discrimination. They're not aware that there are holes in many states where you can be fired for being LGBTQ, you can be kicked out of your apartment.
You've been subject to some of the discrimination that we're talking about outlined today?
Yeah. When you grow up LGBT, you question your place in society, you feel like an outsider. And I think it's really remarkable how far we've come. While I haven't faced outright discrimination in my life, the fact is that millions of LGBTQ Americans still are not protected by the law. This would add LGBTQ Americans to our civil rights architecture. It would treat this particular group no differently than any other group in the United States. And we're asking for nothing more and nothing less than what every other American enjoys. And I think it's about time to get there.
I want to ask you about some of your Republican colleagues.
Okay, so I have to kill it there because as there's good news, there's honestly bad news. Now, the Equality Act was passed by the House, pretty much Democratic controlled. Unfortunately, it was not passed in the Senate. Pretty much every Republican voted against it. Think about that for a second. Every Republican voted off the simple fact that they want that simply a group of people out there, different from you or me, simply wants to be seen as equal. Every Republican voted against it. That alone should tell you everything. And the thing about it is, like I always said, I don't care. And it's funny that I even say I hate to quote Eminem. Eminem had the simplest answer to this. He said, pretty much, I don't care if you're white, black, brown, purple, or polka dot. If you are nice to me, I'll be nice to you. Simple as that. I adopt the same philosophy. Like I said, I come from a family that has plenty of LGBTQ people. Still love them. Yeah, we argue. Yeah, we fight. Still gonna be family at the end of the day. In the same sense, where I got friends that also fit that mold. Still, we will still laugh. We will still joke. We will agree. We will disagree, but we will still be friends. Why? Because the thing about it is, what a lot of people don't get is that they're not equal. Think about this for a second. There's already a standing in the army that bans trans soldiers. Think about that. If you're basically, and what I mean by trans is those ones that identify as either boy or a girl, regardless of their natural birth. If they identify as a boy or a girl, then that's trans. That right now is outlawed in the military. Trans soldiers cannot be active in the U.S. military. That alone should tell you something. The simple fact of the matter is that there is now a law for workplace resolution, especially in right-to-work states, where if they could fire you based off your gender and preference, they can. It's called right to work. Right to work will allow that to happen. And especially in the same sense where there is, and the thing about it is, and this is the thing where I usually argue as to they're all equal, they're not. Because there's still that discrimination. There's no discrimination protection put in there for LGBTQ members. I mean, prime example. Before the equality movement, civil rights movement for black people were never seen as equal. And I know, before we go into the whole segment of we're still not equal and all this stuff, I get it. But for this purpose of this example, let's just go with it. But black people, at the same time, we're not saying anything about it. We were seeing, of course, it's like we weren't seeing it. We weren't seeing enough to be, in administrative. We weren't seen to be NBA owners. Still aren't. We weren't seen to be CEOs. We weren't seen to be anything more than entertainment. Sports, singing, comedian, entertainers. Make us laugh. That's what they saw. And so, it's still a climb for us. That's why I said I still acknowledge. Our struggle ain't over. Please believe, our struggle ain't over. We may have kicked in a few doors, but our struggle still isn't over. Now, with that being said, apply that to those that are different from us, our LGBTQ people. They still have a battle they have to go through themselves. They can marry, but how many times has the idea of marriage been put up? Like the Marriage Defense Act, that we had to put down that marriage is defined between a man and a woman just because there are a few people out there that can't see two men or two women getting married. How many times have we sat there and seen where they had to introduce a transgender bathroom bill because they were afraid of the fear of a man identifying himself as a woman going into the same bathroom as a little girl, and God forbid something happens there? How many times have we sat there and seen that if a man simply just wants to basically get coverage for his partner, that the insurance company will deny him because they're a same-sex couple? So when you hear all that, it's not equal. That's why this Equality Act is important. That's exactly why this Equality Act is important. And at the same time, it's also why they still have to fight for it, because this basically, without this Equality Act, it basically allows a company, it allows a business, it allows a person to legally discriminate, and yet at the same time, a lot of people don't see it as a problem. That companies can still legally discriminate. That alone should tell you everything that you should know. That's why that Equality Act is so important. And it will be an uphill fight, simply put, because you have 173 Republican senators, well, basically idiots. I mean, I go off the bat and say, religion dictates that they deny people different from them. I can sit there and say because the Republicans are listening to their base, which are probably just as idiotic. I can sit there and say that, for the simple fact of the matter, they just may say no because the rest of their party says no. But at the same time, no matter what, it's like the old guard is dying. The whole idea of the old view and the traditional is dying out, and progressives are getting larger in number. So again, like I always said, Things are going to change to a certain point. I just feel like they're not changing enough because, like I said, I view myself as a progressive. I view myself in the same sense of just things need to move forward in order for things to change. For a lot of shit that should have been done. I mean, come on now. We're in 2019. A woman still questioning over her own body. Everybody is not seen as equal. We basically have a guy who basically who's basically a born-again Nazi wanting to play dictator. It's almost like the 1950s all over again. So you can't sit there and say, and I'm sorry, Trace, I see what you say where you said they're already equal. I can't say that because in the same sense, it's like I could walk into an army recruitment place today and immediately get enlisted in the service, after testing and whatnot. A trans person can't say that. A trans person can't go walk into the Army, Navy, or any branch of service enlistment office because the moment he puts down what he is or what they are, they're gonna be denied. You think they wouldn't deny anybody because they're troop numbers, but they would be denied. So I can't say that, Trace, as far as them being equal. Oh, you're talking about the actors thing. Okay. Well, I mean, I get that too, and that's probably somewhere we'll probably discuss later on that one. But again, the Equality Act is important because, like I said, it's something that needs to happen in this country. That needs to happen and needs to be done already. It's just that it's sad that we're still having to fight this fight. But we are going to fight this fight. Like I said, I'm an ally of LGBTQ. I got no problem saying that because they deserve to have the same rights we do, point blank and period, without discrimination. You can quote me on that all you want, but I'm still going to stick to that. So, moving right along before we get to our good news segment, there was this one story that I just saw that, it makes me think. At the same time, I always said that companies are always heartless. I always say there's no such thing as corporate loyalty. If you do find a job and you find a job that's better for you, better pay, better benefits, all the above, take it. There's no such thing as corporate loyalty. Let me tell you something about these corporations. These corporations will turn around and will cut you. I'm sorry, bad example. Say you will work yourself to death. These corporations, they will replace you on the same day and keep it pushing. They will gladly turn around and sit there and say, you know what? It is what it is. Go for it. And that way, I was like, companies like, well, we want people that are going to stay around. Well, I want to be able to move up as far as I can because fuck you. There's no such thing as corporate loyalty. That's the way my mind was. So it was interesting when I came across this video, which I thought was interesting, that a company is really doing some different shit. I'll let you see it.
The Monday to Friday grind can be grueling. Traffic, emails, phone calls. And that's before even getting to the office. A new study shows that more than half of Americans experience stress a lot of the day. So for all those overworked and under pressure employees, there's no surprise me time often takes a backseat.
Are you taking a full hour for lunch?
Oh, I wish. It can be as simple as stepping outside during the day.
Any chance to get out and get some sun, get out of the office, get some fresh food, why not?
It breaks the monotony, gives you a release.
But experts say disconnecting for longer periods is also key. Here at Creative Plan Designs in New York, disconnecting is non-negotiable.
What do you tell your employees? I tell them, I want you to unplug. I want you to be gone.
CEO Ronald Stair says using vacation days is mandatory. That means no calls and no emails, not even checking them.
It allows you to really be off when you're off.
And off means off. Business emails are automatically forwarded to someone else.
People think they have to be there to demonstrate that they're working as hard or harder than their coworkers.
You're finding that when they do come back, they're
refreshed, they are focused, they're clear.
But research shows nearly half of employees don't use all their paid time off.
You have to meet your deadlines and do everything that's expected of you at work.
To help workers help themselves, some companies are offering incentives. At Olark Live Chat in California, taking a week off will get you an extra $1,000. Epic in Wisconsin offers a paid month off every 5 years. If you go to a country you've never visited, the company will help fund the trip for you and a guest. Companies turning convention on its head, a win for everyone.
All right, so it's interesting concept as far as, companies making sure that you basically get vacation, and even giving you incentive to do so. And it's interesting to where I used to always sit there and say it's one of those things where it's like, if you're like me, working almost day near 40 plus hours a week, just doing enough just not to be broke. I get it. And so, vacation is like vacation. I'm like, if I was gonna go on vacation, like, I'm gonna be literally honest, like, my idea of a vacation, honestly, I'm gonna be honest, let's do this. This is confession time. Let's go confession time. Confession time, I've never been on a boat. I've always sat there and said, now don't get me wrong about vacations, I've went here, I've went there, I've seen both coasts. I've seen Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is beautiful, Pacific coastline and all that. I've seen the Atlantic coastline at Myrtle Beach. Thought that was cool too. But what I've never actually seen was the view from a cruise ship. And if you're like me and you have a fear of flying, and I mean a fear like you could be sitting there, you're in the seat, which is already uncomfortable by the way, and you hear, and God forbid you're sitting on the wing, because you can hear the turbines powering, you hear the turbines spooling up. Every sound is magnified. Because, like most airplanes, you can't see, you can see, you got a window right here, but you can't see as if you're driving. So, not to mention, you're off the ground, you're strapped in, you're in this position, so all that's going on amplifies everything, and if you're already having extreme fear of it, it adds up to it. Now, don't get me wrong, if I have to fly, I cowboy up, deal with it, no problem. But it's like if I wanted to go to a cruise ship somewhere, either I have to find a port or go fly, either drive to a port, go fly to a port, and go meet the cruise ship there. So I always said to myself, because I want to take me and my girlfriend. I kept telling my girlfriend, and she's like, "You keep saying that every 2 months." Like, I want us to go on a cruise together. I'll be honest with you. As many places I've been, and this is probably gonna mess people up. I've never seen the Bahamas. I've never seen the Caribbean. I've flown over the Caribbean, but never really sat down on it. Never been to Jamaica. And my one dream spot I want to go to is Hawaii. But I already know, in order for me to go to Hawaii, I would have to fly to Los Angeles, which, again, done been there, done that. And then it's an 8-hour flight to Hawaii. So it's like, I want a vacation. I do. I so do. I want to go to, like I said, with me and vacations, I want to go to some place I've never been, which is the exact reason why I want to go to a cruise ship, because I've heard such amazing shit about cruise ships. I mean, the simple fact you got open bars on every floor, food is constantly around. I mean, there's things to do on the boat, and then of course when you get to the destination you want to go to, and there's fun shit there. I get that, but I love the idea of it. But at the same time, it's companies that you have to work for, and of course with bills and everything else, that having a vacation or trying to get to a vacation or just trying to have time off just to get away from the monotony can sometimes be daunting, especially if you got kids too, because that's a whole nother ball game. So even though I talk bad about corporations, and even though there are some out there who are still doing their people dirty, it is refreshing to see a company sit there and say, look, we want you to go on vacation. You leave all your shit here. Leave your phone, leave your iPad or whatever crap we gave you. Go away for 2 weeks, come back, and then, get back to it. But take those 2 weeks or 3 weeks or how much vacation time you have, and go enjoy it. That's what you should do. So I love the fact that there is a company out there. Like I said, I know not all corporations are bad. But it is nice to see a company out there that is simply just trying to change the direction, because, like I said, we're starting to become like Japan in many ways. Like Japan itself, you have people working themselves to death, literally dying in the cubicle. And I said to myself, that's not going to be me. Like, I am going to get it together about my fear of flying and be able to go to the places I want to go. But I would say what I took from that story was there is a company out there that's trying to change the narrative, but I just thought that was pretty cool. They gave so many incentives to this for their people to for their people to take vacation. And Lord only knows, I started to go look up the website and look at the careers, see what they got in their IT people. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and go to our end of it all, our basically our feel-good story. Now, what is a feel-good story? I always call them feel-good stories because in a world of doom and gloom, and we always talk about all the shit that Trump has done and everything else has done, that we know we need something that makes us feel good. Gives us a little bit of sense that humanity is truly not lost. And this one is about Deontay Wilder. Now, for all those that have either watched mine, my podcast, Trace's podcast, Vaughn's podcast, I don't think Thomas does it on his. But anybody who has watched any of our podcasts, you've probably heard this familiar bite. You've probably heard this familiar sound bite.
400 years.
Your peoples too. So I just want you to explain what you mean by that.
You know what I'm talking about. Y'all all know what I'm talking about, man. Don't sit up here and try to bait and not know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what the fuck I talk about when I say these things. Your people too.
Explain it. And not everybody knows what you're talking about.
Radio Raheem, I don't have to explain what's understood, man. You know what I mean by that. You know what I say about that. I ain't got to go further. And if anybody don't understand that, then God be with them. Go look up the history. Go look up the history. Shit, don't everybody believe in Google? Go Google that shit. See what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about, man. You know what. I dare you to sit up there and say, explain. You know what I'm talking about, man. He's fighting people. You know we've been fighting 400 and still fighting to this day. To this day. To this day.
Yeah, so you probably heard that sound bite used multiple times on any of our podcasts. And Deontay Wilder, who right now is the world heavyweight boxing champ, and I always wondered to myself, because everybody loves placing that soundbite, which is not wrong because he's talking about systemic racism to Radio Raheem, who literally acts like he doesn't understand what the fuck's going on, which is the reason why I respect Deontay Wilder even more. But what I did know about him, this is the reason I want to get this story about him, was the fact that he is different inside the ring and outside the ring.
That's heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder ringing the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange Wednesday, and as you can see, breaking the gavel in the process. Wilder has earned a fearful reputation for his power in the boxing ring, and he plans to use it tonight in an electrifying title defense against Dominic Breazeale at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. But what happens to all that power and intimidation outside the ring? We recently found out.
Wilder's right hand is Thor's hammer, and here in round one, he is Ragnarocking Stavern!
Heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder has proclaimed himself the baddest man on the planet. An apt description, earned one knockout at a time.
Down!
What's it like when you land a knockout punch?
To feel that power, you know, the velocity that's coming from my fist to hit his face, to meet that right there, and to see the reaction that happens. The hardest hit a punch in boxing, period.
And while he prides himself on that reputation with his Bronze Bomber nickname, spend a little time with the 6'7" powerhouse,
love my babies,
and you'll see boxing is just one part of Wilder. And the title he seems to relish most is dad.
Outside of boxing, I'm a homebody. I'm a true homebody. And I love being around my family. I love being around my kids. And I tell them I love them about 6 or 7 times a day. Give me a kiss. Oh.
The dichotomy that is Deontay, a mix of peace and ruthless power, which he says has been within him all along.
My mom would say he was a Tasmanian devil, you know, but I was quiet though. I was to myself.
The second oldest of 4 kids raised in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, the place he still calls home, Wilder dreamt of playing basketball or football for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And while he grew up poor, one thing he was rich in, family. And with that came faith.
We had a lot of love. My entire family was based off love, you know. I'm a pastor's child as well too, so.
And a pastor's grandchild.
And a pastor's grandchild.
Wilder's father, Gary, was and still is a preacher in Tuscaloosa. Any memories that come back to you?
Almost definitely, you know. Just sitting up in the pulpit, you know, I always talked about the the passion that he had when he preached.
God, in the name of Jesus, we ask you to let your hand be with him.
Your son is the heavyweight champ.
Yeah,
You work in a house of God.
absolutely.
People don't see those two things connecting.
Correct.
What do you think?
There is a connection, it's a spiritual connection. And you know, things that are spiritual are going to be unseen.
Although he was a man of God and stuff, he didn't believe in not defending yourself now. He wasn't going to let nobody bully you. We had the God in us too, but we also had the other side as well.
Faith and strength, which Wilder relied upon when at age 19, he found out he was going to be a father for the first time.
I must admit, it was very scary. The ball game is different when your child is not healthy.
That child would be born with spina bifida, meaning her spinal cord wouldn't be developed properly.
Sometimes God throw you tests in there, because that's what I look at it as. It was a test for me.
Did you think at any point of just walking away?
Never. Never. I mean, damn, when you said that, that stabbed my heart. Like, I could never imagine my daughter not being here. You know, that's my world. That's the foundation and the start to it all. You know what I mean?
Wilder's daughter, Naia, is 14 now. She's thrived despite doctors' fears. But before she was born, Wilder had no way of knowing how much medical or physical help she would need, just that he would be the one to provide it. In deciding you need to take care of your child, how did boxing become that answer?
I brought up boxing for the simple fact that, I was looking at the money aspect of it. I was ignorant to the sport. I thought every fighter that stepped in the ring made a lot of money, you know.
What was it like the first time getting in there?
First off, when I walked to the gym, no lie, when I walked into there, I heard the heavenly sounds. Hallelujah, hallelujah. You know, with all the bags being hit, the speed bag.
Really?
Because I never seen this. I'm in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We ain't seen no boxing here.
The first time he got between the ropes, Wilder admits he was like Bambi, trying to get his footing and teach his body how to be a fighter. But he was driven by a promise made to then one-year-old Naia.
I had no one else to watch her while I was in the gym, and I remember calming her down, patting on the back, said, "No, it's okay, baby, don't worry. Daddy's gonna be the heavyweight champion of the world one day, and he's gonna be able to support you beyond your belief." You know what I mean? She's just looking at me, not knowing the thing that I'm talking about.
Since putting on his first pair of boxing gloves, it would take Wilder about a decade to get a shot at the heavyweight title. But he never forgot that promise. On January 17, 2015, Deontay Wilder was crowned WBC Heavyweight World Champion.
Naia, baby, I know you watching this, man. I promise you when you was 1 year old that Daddy'll be world champion. And we'd have been through a lot, man, and here I am, Daddy, coming home with that belt, baby.
What was that moment like?
Oh, man, that was amazing. It was an amazing moment because I had so much weighing in on that. It was like, man, I did it, you know. It's just that feeling of setting a goal, and no matter what, just going through so much.
Dad kept his promise.
At age 29, Wilder became the first American heavyweight champ in nearly 10 years. And now, the big paydays he promised his daughter are his reality. This was your way out, your way to a better life.
Amen.
But it doesn't mean it's who you are as a person.
Exactly. Right on here. It don't mean who I am. I love to fight now. Keep me around. I'm a nice guy that can whoop some ass. Okay? That's what I am. That's what I am. Every bit of it.
Oh, wow.
Simply put.
And that's the reason why I wanted to show that, because like I said, aside from the fact of knowing him outside of a boxer, it's like, for me, it's always nice to sit there and show really a different part of a guy. And it's kind of interesting, like I said, cool to see a man that, you know, boxing is one world, but really his world is being a dad. And it's always nice, and I hate to sound cliche about that, but I love seeing positive black dudes step up and honestly show the world that it's not all about violence, you know. And don't get me wrong, I know there's plenty of other examples out there, but I just want to show this one because, you know, every time you hear Deontay Wilder, all you hear is, to this day! To this day! That's usually all you hear. And don't get me wrong, it's a good soundbite, but I wanted to give some substance to the man because, like I said, Right now, he is the best. He is the best heavyweight boxer out there, and of course, much props to him. But anyway, just made me feel good to see just a father that talked more about his kids than he did about his boxing and about his life outside of boxing than about the sport. But we're going to go ahead and call it there for that, guys. I do thank you for all watching this podcast, How the Frack We Got Here. This is not the only one I'm going to have today. Later on today, we're actually going to have a full house, hopefully. Because I know Trace and Vaughn, you guys are here in Nashville, so definitely going to be having probably a full house with that. Thomas, I know, is somewhere around here. He'll usually pop up. Now, the guys I'm talking about will be on my Optimus podcast. It's basically a show where I know Vaughn calls it community building, and it sort of is, but I also want to encourage people to talk. And that's the one thing about Off Limits that, aside from us talking about various subjects, it's about the simple fact of the matter is just honestly talking about those uncomfortable subjects and making them comfortable, because that's the only way you can become comfortable. So that show's going to happen a little bit later on, between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Central Time. And of course, my How the Frack We Got Here is usually every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon. And like I said, from the other table of boss members I have here, Trace, as you've seen on here, which usually he'd be saying bump down, bump down, bump down, bump down. Usually he'll be saying that. And what Bump Down is a musical podcast in which he goes over, and forgive me if I mess this up, Trace, because I've been hiccuping a lot, and Vaughn jinxed me on this. So if I get this wrong, Trace, please forgive me. So what is the Bump Down? The Bump Down is music, knowledge, charts, and culture. Shit, I think I got that wrong. Trace, please forgive me, but I promise to get it around the next one. But anyway, it is a musical podcast where he goes over what's hot on the charts and what's not, pretty much what's hot on the underground and whatnot. Talks about upcoming artists, and he also has a section to where if you want music to be played on his podcast, definitely look him up, DJ King 81, on YouTube and on Facebook, and he'll be able to get you going as far as how to do that. Thank you, Trace. Music, culture, knowledge, numbers. Fuck you, Vaughn, because I got that wrong because you jinxed me. But thank you, Trace. Aside from that, he does also have another podcast called Smoke of Truth. Smoke of Truth is all I like to call it, the no frills, check your ego at the door, bluntest podcast out there to this day. And the thing about Smoke of Truth is Trace is an unorthodox but very intelligent brother who will literally sit there and talk about it in the plainest, bluntest Jane sense, and you cannot. It's like a lot of people will get offended because of the truth. But like the great Patrice O'Neal once said, truth isn't meant to make you feel good. It's him to make you. Truth is not supposed to taste good. It's supposed to help you heal. So again, I recommend the Smoke of Truth because he'll go to those places that a lot of people won't go. So again, you should watch that as well. I did talk about my other friend. We're gonna do it tonight? Oh shit. Okay, scratch that. We're gonna be doing a roundtable Smoke with Truth tonight. Okay, cool. So again, it'll be tonight. Aside from that, my other buddy Vaughn, H1 Spoon on Facebook, has our podcast of his own. He actually has the I Get That Reference VST, which is a mini podcast over various music, news, video games, things of that nature, things that he finds informative, also interactive. He also has I almost said the Bump Down again. Thank you, Trace. Now I got the Bump Down stuck in my head. He also has Rhythmness, where you can reminisce over the rhythm, where he actually goes over certain albums and grades them to a 4-tier system. Want to know what that 4-tier system is? You have to watch Rhythmness to find out. He also has Random as Fuck, which I did mention earlier in this podcast. Random as Fuck is basically the pool of ratchetness we sometimes tip our toes into to basically give us a laugh and a break from monotony. And like I said, sometimes funny videos, sometimes weird videos, sometimes video of an old man that's really looking like he shouldn't be rapping about being a kingpin because the AARP card got ended up. You want to know what I'm talking about? You definitely got to watch Random as Fuck to see that. And of course, all the schedule for all of Vaughn's podcasts are actually available on his Facebook. So if you go to A Step One Spoon on Facebook, you'll be able to see the entire one, or go to the I Get That Reference page, which is still going to be potentially transitioned to a Table of Bosses video vault, and be able to see it there. And last but not least, our other member, Thomas Reed, aka the Mountain Puncher, will eventually be doing his podcast today. To be determined. What is to be determined? To be determined is a fitness podcast. For anybody that's seen Thomas, you can see that this man is all about fitness because he's always in a tank top. I cannot make that up. I guarantee when he does his podcast today, he'll be in a tank top. Mark my words. But anyway, love the dude. All about fitness. Is always wanting to share what he has discovered. You know, what workouts work, what don't work, what to do in the gym, what not to do, how to eat. and pretty much give his own personal testimony that pretty much he hopes will help people find their zenith, and by zenith meaning finding their fitness and finding what works for them, and hopefully finding a new way of life. So again, to be determined, which will actually be 3 p.m. this also today on Facebook Live. Now I did mention I get that reference Facebook, in which all of our videos and things of that nature can be found there. And of course, you can still join that, because eventually that will become our video vault, and which you can watch every other podcast we've done from there. Now, all of us do have YouTube pages as well. So if you look up DJ King Eddie Wayne, if you look up Big BZA Dot, if you look up How the Frack We Got Here, if you look up Off Limits Podcast, all of those are active YouTube pages in which we keep every one of our video podcasts up to date. And of course, DJ King Eddie Wayne does have the help me out here, Trace. Put the link down for his Spotify, for his actual DJ King Eddie Wayne radio station, which you can listen to 24/7 a day. Tracy, if you be so kind to put that in the link to where they can find that. And also, like I said, we're trying to just basically grow this thing up. So like I said, on How the Frack We Got Here with my own podcast, if there's subjects that you want to talk about or want me to look into, that I can definitely do that. And if you like the show, let me know. If you don't like it, then it's cool. Let me know what you don't like about it, so hopefully I can make it better for you. Because like I said, the whole thing about How the Frack We Got Here is staying informed. What does staying informed basically mean? It means that you're going beyond what you see on television and on paper. You're going in and doing the research yourself and actually finding what's true and what's not. And then you're bringing that research back to others in hopes that you'll basically instill the same fire in them. So because an uninformed society can make a lot better decisions than an uninformed one, because an uninformed one basically got Trump in, and that's how the frack we got here. So, hope to see you guys later today when we all have a full house for the Smoke of Truth and everything else that's going on. And like I said, let me know what's going on. Like I said, guys, if you're in the South, it's going to be a hot one today. So be safe, stay hydrated. Please don't get sunstroke, because you don't want that. Anyway, guys, thank you for all watching How the Frack We Got Here. I'm going to head out and enjoy this Saturday until tonight and go from there. Sorry, Pat. Peace.